I feel a compulsion to make, and I'm always thinking about how this experience or that encounter can be translated into something meaningful as an artwork. I am Marian Hester. I'm a former lawyer and investment banker who eventually decided to end the corporate phase of my career and study full-time. So I requalified a few years ago and started making art. While I was studying, our lecturers encouraged us to make work about ourselves. So I had a level of anxiety that kept building, that I wasn't really making work about myself. I found myself making work about damaged nature, about uprooted trees and brokenness and the ecological crisis. The fact that I'm dealing with destruction and with damage and with uncertainty, the processes that are uncontrolled. I think all of those things speak to my own journey of loss and grief and trauma and coping and trying to find a way through the information, the ever-changing information, in a way. My newest works are called the Corrosion series, and in those works I use the idea of the shadow combined with the idea of the distorted reflection. So the works are made up of drawings of shadows that I've used previously in other works, but they're also metaphorically shadows. They're also versions of what they were. The plates are being eaten away by the chemicals, and they will continue to decay if I don't stop the process, but it might be interesting to leave some of them to decay completely. Transforming something apparently valueless, something that we would use to start a fire with, step on without thinking about it, or break, or ignore, or leave to rot. Something like that becomes valuable when we transform it into a precious material like bronze. Molten bronze at some enormous temperature is poured directly onto the wood, and the wood literally vaporizes, it disappears. And I really like that idea. All that's left is the translation of the wood into something else, the derivative, the shadow. That's all that's left. Most of my sculptural work deals with this absent original. And in the bronzes, when they come out from the foundry process, are a very pretty pinkish golden color. Those are treated with a patination process so that they become grey and white. Sometimes they've got touches of green or brown in them, and they look very much like the original, so people assume that you've just displayed a piece of broken wood in the gallery, which is sometimes surprising. The whole series is called the landscape bronzes. Every bronze comes out of a landscape. They're mounted on brackets against a wall and lit so that their shadow is very much part of the work. The idea that this is a derivative object and it is then casting another derivative on the wall, its own shadow, but the whole work is a shadow of something that existed before. I'd like to be known as an artist who is good at combining the concept and the execution, so the idea behind the work and the way of making the work. I think that it would be nice to be thought of as someone who does that well. I'm very energized by the process of the viewer's response to my works. There are lots of ways of reading the work, of approaching it and interpreting it and coming up with your own idea. And I really love hearing from viewers and friends and critics and colleagues what the work makes them think about. I notice shadows everywhere. I love the way they move, how they can exist separately from the object that casts the shadow. So that idea of the partial reflection or the distorted reflection I find quite interesting. It represents a process for me in reinterpreting the world, in rethinking about what happens to me event by event. It's a way of processing and a way of reimagining the world. So many of the images I make are provisional. The trees are in pieces or they're suspended in some kind of between state, and that perhaps that provisional quality leaves things open. It leaves the possibilities open for other conclusions or other results, perhaps even hopeful outcomes.